Now that we've learned all the different varied sentence types that we have so far, which gives us 7 to 8, depending on how you count those compound sentences, um, students are going to practice a little bit of writing using them with some varied sentences. So this is the task that they've been assigned. They were given this paper on Wednesday, November 14th, and they need to figure out which font they like the best. And this is intended to be a fun assignment. I don't often give a lot of freedom with font. We kind of, as a school, as an English department, have decided that a good standard size font that makes it consistent for everybody is Times New Roman and Arial. And so we don't always get to use our favorite font. I know I don't. My favorite is Comic Sans, which is what I'm doing this worksheet in. So they need to pick their favorite font and explain why they like it. And there were 2 exceptions to this. Because if their font is in wingdings or some other type of symbol like hieroglyphics, they need to type it first in a font that is legible and readable and understandable for me, and then they can save and transfer that, or save it and change the font to the font that they like and print out a second copy for me to display, but I definitely need one that I can grade. The other exception is if the font is all capital letters, they need to first type and save that and print it in a font that shows correct capital and capitalization usage, so that I can grade it. And so I encourage students to just do a little exploring and see what kind of fonts there are out there. I know my husband does not allow me to save fonts to our computer because he said that it can mess up computers. So if students do find a font that they really like and are not able to access it, I told them they could still write about that font, just print it off and bring it in so that we can kind of see what it would look like, if they find it on the internet or something, and then they can just type it in a different font. So this top part is just a pre-write, and they're looking at what their favorite font is, why they like it, what it looks like. There are some fonts that have particular characters. For example, there's a font that the I and the J are dotted with snowflakes. And so they just have to describe, are there any unique characters or anything different about that font, what makes it unique. When is a good time to use it? We talked about the poem that I had done, Bats, on Halloween, and how I used the font Chiller because it was just kind of a font that makes you think of something scary, and it was Halloween. So is there a good time to use that font? What does the font tell you about a person? We looked at an article that we had found in Newsweek that talked about how font tells about personality, similarly to how you used to be able to do a handwriting analysis and tell something about your personality. And then how does this font make you feel? And just to go along with our good sentence structure writing habits, they needed to include an attention grabber that was off of our approved list and end with some type of a summary statement or a full circle ending. Now within this structure of writing about their favorite font, they need to be practicing their use of varied sentences. So they need to include 3 different types of varied sentences. And I encourage them to keep this with their notes and have their notes out with them while they're writing. And these are the varied sentence types they can choose from. I did ask that they don't use the same type. So for example, for compound, there's a comma conjunction or a semicolon. So, oops. Sorry about that. So if they choose to use compound, they need to pick one of these types and then pick 2 other varied sentence types from the list. As they start writing, I told them not to really worry about this part yet because most of them are naturally writing with some kind of varied sentence structure already. So just start writing about your font. And after you're done with your first draft, go back and look at it, and you might find that you already did write a sentence that had a prepositional phrase in it. And so you can go ahead and label that. And you might find that you already used figurative language, and so you might only need to go back and add one type of varied sentence. So this is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be kind of fun and creative, and I know they don't always get the opportunity to do that in language arts. At the bottom of their paper is an example of what theirs needs to look like. And you can see on mine, I kind of already have it labeled, what it should look like. Here are my varied sentence types. I have a dependent clause, which actually students won't be using in this assignment. Last year when we did this, we did it a little later in the school year, and we had already talked about dependent clauses. But you can still get the idea that here's my first sentence that has an appositive, which is one of our varied sentence types. Here's my second sentence, and there's my third. And they do need to label these. I encourage them to label them as they type. That way they don't have to hunt and search for them after they get done writing and printing it off. They can go ahead and do that as they go. And that kind of ensures that they've met all the requirements of what they need to for the rubric. So here's the rubric. They need to write a well-developed paragraph that has an attention getter, 3 supporting details, and a summary sentence or a full circle ending. They need to have a minimum of 3 varied sentences, and they should be labeled as done in the example. They should have a paragraph that's formatted with the heading, and you can't see mine on here, it's cut off a little bit, but their name, the title, that it should be double spaced, although I did encourage that it be put on one page so that I could display them during conferences. And they need their sentences labeled, telling what sentence type it is, and that is just for me to make it easy to grade and for them to make sure that they've included them. And then in addition to their varied sentences, we've talked a lot about smiley face tricks, and they have a handout in their binder that reviews this. And so I want them to use 2 different types of smiley face tricks. And I did have them add that they should be labeled when they turn it in. And so if you look up at my example up here, I have mine highlighted or glossed in yellow. A brand new, never been used, 24 months of saving her allowance, describes laptop, and that's a hyphenated modifier. And then mine over here, highlighted in yellow, name alone screams, which is personification because a name cannot scream. And so I want them to try, and it's not worth a lot of points, but I really do want them to get into the habit of trying to put these into their writing, because I think the more they do it, the more natural it's going to become for them. As another side note, and something I emphasized in class, if you look at a positive up here as a varied sentence type, it can also be a smiley face trick, but they are not allowed to use this one sentence for both, meeting both requirements of a varied sentence and a smiley face trick. So if they choose to use an appositive as a varied sentence, then they need to choose something different for a smiley face trick. Okay, and so if students come into class tomorrow on Thursday with their pre-write done, they'll get a little bit of time to start writing, and then they're on their own as far as typing it and getting it done. But again, it's just one paragraph. I told them 7 to 8 sentences typed and turned in to me on Monday in time for conferences. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to email me about this. But this is just a little mini writing assignment to practice varied sentence structure.